Hello and welcome to another Literacy Ready training refresher. This training refresher focuses on the gateway activity for the English Unit 2. It also provides a bit of information about the gateway activity in English Unit 1. So first of all, what is a gateway activity? We've designed gateway activities in all of the Literacy Ready units to be, first, an engaging introduction to the ideas of the unit. And the focus here is on both really engaging activities, something that will engage students in interesting discussion and work around the ideas of the unit. And then also it's an introduction to the activities of the unit. So an introduction to the kinds of topics we'll be talking about, to the kinds of activities we'll be doing, and to the idea of disciplinary literacy in the unit. So for the English Unit 2, the essential question is, how is the exponential increase of information that we process in all forms of media affecting the way we live? And we're using, as you probably know, the novel by Philip K. Dick, Ubik, to address that question. It's the same essential question in Unit 1. So for the gateway activity in Unit 2, we use Smagorinsky and O'Donnell Allen's idea of body biographies, and we ask students to use their body biographies to develop an avatar. There's a figure here in this slide of the students' body biographies. In this case, students have drawn an outline of their whole body, and they've used words and images to illustrate, in this case, the character Laertes from Shakespeare's Hamlet, to talk about, what is the characteristic of that character. What we're doing in the gateway activity here in the development of an avatar is really providing students with an opportunity to take some of the key elements of the novel and make them personal for themselves, and this happens even before they've begun to read the novel. This gateway activity also makes time for really interesting conversation, opportunities for students to practice creativity, and to use their imaginations to think about how the passage of time and the use of technology may influence who they are going to become. A little bit more information then about this gateway activity. In developing what we're calling their avatar, students basically create a self-portrait of themselves 30 years in the future. And they do that considering changes in technology, changes in society, and changes that will take place in themselves personally in their predictions over that 30-year period. The materials that students need to create a physical avatar or a paper version of their avatar is just butcher paper or wall-size Post-its, markers, magazines and newspapers, scissors, tape, glue, and other kinds of materials that students might need to get a little bit artistic. You can also have students create their avatars electronically if you prefer that. If you Google create your own avatar, you'll get a variety of options, and I've created an avatar of myself that you'll see later on in this video. So basically what students do is trace their body outlines on butcher paper, add images and descriptive phrases to represent themselves 30 years in the future. So in the lesson plan, they're asked to consider a few questions like, what will I look like physically? How will I act? How will I treat other people? What sort of career will I be engaged in? What sorts of relationships will I have? What changes in society and technology will have taken place, and how will those changes impact me? That last question is the one that brings in the ideas from the novel and really starts to help students be thinking about how technology in specific, but also changes in science, can impact how they live their lives and who they will become. So to carry out this, we ask students to take place in discussion first. They can do this in pairs, they can do this in small groups, and then maybe move into whole class discussion using the questions in the lesson plan, those questions that we just talked about. Then you want to provide time for students to work, have all those materials that we talked about, those artsy kinds of supplies available for them to use. Encourage students to use both visuals and words. It's very tempting for students to only use visuals, to cut out pictures from magazines, to draw pictures. But it's helpful too to have them use words, particularly because they will be revisiting this avatar later. Then when the students are finished, it's a really good idea to ask students to present their avatars and talk about them. And when they're presenting and talking about them, it's useful too to ask them questions. Why did you choose to use that picture to represent your vision? Or why did you choose to use those words to represent who you'll be in 30 years? So thinking about asking them to really articulate why they made the choices they did, why do they think that they will be that kind of person in 30 years, can really help to make this more engaging. So here's that example of the avatar that you can create online. I did this in like 15 minutes. Now I don't have any images on here, and it certainly does not represent who I might be in 30 years, because by that time I'll be in my 80s and I didn't really want to represent that. But it's the kind of image that you can have students create online if you choose to. So during the remainder of the units, during the remainder of the unit, we use these avatars as what we're calling parking lots for ideas. So basically, as students as they read the novel, as they participate in discussions, as they take notes, they're asked to transfer their notes to the avatar. So some people have put manila folders onto the avatar, sort of staple them onto the edge, and then students can put their notes in those folders. Other people have had students write key notes on sticky notes and stick them up there. The trouble with sticky notes is they don't always stick, as I'm sure you know, and so sometimes that folder idea might be a better one. These notes that they're developing throughout the course of the unit, we will come back to at the end of the unit when they're writing their final essay, and those notes can be used as part of their preparation for the essay. Once students have finished with the avatar development, they examine an extended definition of technology, which is in the academic notebook and in the lesson plan, and of ubiquitous computing. They're then going to examine a set of book covers under which UBIC has been published in various editions. Then they're going to go back to their avatars and revise them as they think necessary. And what we've seen is that particularly this notion of ubiquitous computing really starts changing the way they think about how technology will interact with their own bodies, with their vision, with their hearing, with what they look like and how they operate. So we've seen some really interesting revisions as students take a look at all of this material, then go back to their avatars. So that's the gateway activity for Unit 2. In Unit 1, which is based on The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, the essential question is the same, again having to do with how all this information that we process impacts the way we live. So in Unit 1, just as a reminder, the gateway activity is a multitasking experiment in which the class is divided in half. Both halves of the class are asked to read a short passage and answer some multiple choice questions. One group is distracted by a variety of things, and then the other group is working in silence without distraction. The idea is really to think about multitasking and whether multitasking impacts the quality of the work that we do. And students examine the data that they collect from this experiment and then discuss the impact of distraction on their ability to focus. So that's the kind of gateway activity for Unit 1. So I hope that this overview of the gateway activities in both Unit 1 and Unit 2, with a little bit more focus here on Unit 2, has been helpful to you as you continue to work through the unit. Thanks.